ladies and gentlemen, to the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast here on ESPN Sports. It's another great day for a Packers fan as we come off another win. My name is Johnny Samp once again, and I am kind of in charge of the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast. It's going to be a great time here, focusing mainly on the NFC North, and then also looking around the league a little bit at some issues that have been going on within the league, I would say kind of everywhere in the NFC, the AFC. We're going to talk about it all right here on the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast. We got the beer, the meat, the cheese, everything you need for the tailgate, and you can fill your ears with good tunes while you're waiting for a big game here on the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast, especially if you're going to the Packer game this weekend against the Vikings. I'll be there along with with a friend and my brother and his friend, so it should be a great time, and I hope you guys tune in and get your advice right before the game. It's going to be a good one. But first, we'll talk about that Packers win against the Titans with Malik Willis once again performing out of his mind, playing a great game. It was a revenge game for him with that Tennessee Titans team, and a team that, I didn't have a lot of expectations they were going to beat us in any sort of way, but it's good to see Malik Willis kind of getting out on the ground once again and finding a way. But once again, I got to give a lot of credit to Matt LaFleur. Coach Matt LaFleur really schemed things up for Malik Willis, and what he's good at. He went through the run game. Didn't have a huge game on the ground, but we got Malik Willis moving. As we take a look here at some of the stats, it looks like he was 13 for 19. He had 202 yards and 1 TD, which is really excellent for him. I mean, a great stat line you want to see, especially out of a young quarterback that we really hasn't had a chance in the league, and something you want to see from a Packers quarterback that's kind of filling in for Jordan Love, who I expect to be back this coming week, against the Vikings. And then looking at the other side, it looks like Will Levis was 26 for 34, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. One by Mr. X, Mr. Him, Xavier McKinney. He looked really good. And then looking at the rushing leaders, Malik Willis was actually the rushing leader for the Packers. We didn't see a big game on Josh Jacobs, which was quite interesting to see, given the fact that he had such a big impact in the game before against the Colts. But Malik Willis had 6 carries, 73 yards, and 1 TD. And then the guy that I really like is Emmanuel Wilson. He's that backup running back. Now that Marshawn Lloyd moved to the IR. But he looked solid, 12 carries, 50 yards. And, Josh Jacobs, again, really no impact in that game. Just kind of didn't scheme for him that way, and things didn't flow towards him. I wouldn't say that it's a bad sign for him. I like that we can still win without his running presence, because that game against the Colts, we really kind of dogged him. And he had to have, I think he had over 200 yards on the ground, but he had 14 carries, 43 yards. The one big issue from the game was that we had a lot of offensive line penalties, a lot of, just neutral zone infractions, false starts, and different kind of penalties that killed drives, which I think we could have really put the dagger in a lot earlier in that game. And, it's troubling to see, especially from the veterans. You see Rashid Walker and then, a couple others get those penalties. They're just stupid penalties. You shouldn't be taking those. It's something that you don't want to see from the Packers, but I think it's something they worked on all week. And I think we should be ready for it against the Vikings, because we got a very good Vikings team coming in at 3-0. And I think they're going to be kind of scary. But then we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But then looking at the other side, Tony Pollard really didn't have a good game. And I really like that he didn't, because he's a solid running back. We saw him in Dallas, just cook defenses, given that was behind the Dallas defensive line or offensive line. And now he's in a little bit different situation with the Titans. But nevertheless, he was a good running back. He only had 6 carries, 14 yards. I mean, big congratulations to Jeff Hafley. I mean, a lot of credit to him scheming things up with that 4-3 defense. And, getting that TJ Slayton, Kenny Clark in the middle, and then a couple outside guys, including like Preston Smith, Lucas Van Ness on the pass rush. That's always good to see. But, compared to week 1 against the Eagles, he has made a lot of improvements, and I'm really impressed with what he's doing with that defense. I know I talked to the Relax dude, tweeted at him, and, we said the big thank you to Jeff Hafley over on Twitter. And that's always so fun to do. Just interact with different contributors and different voices within that Twitterverse. But I think everybody in the Packers Nation, after going from Dom Capers to Mike Pettin to Joe Barry, and nothing seemingly working, we have so many number 1 draft picks on that defense, and we just can't get anything to work. I think it's a big credit to Jeff Hafley for getting things done and especially introducing a new style of defense with our team. I mean, we haven't run a 4-3 before, and now we're running it, and we're running it really well, and I think we're getting better each week. I talked about Xavier McKinney. He had another pick. He's 3 for 3 in the games, and that's really interesting to see because that pick that he had, he was the corner on that route was Jair, and Jair's finally playing back up the ball. He also had a pick too, and it's good to see that side of the field getting those interceptions and turnovers when we need them, especially. Now I hope it continues with better quarterbacks. I wouldn't say Will Levis is at the top of the league. Sam Darnold is playing pretty much out of his mind right now from what we've expected from him. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Sam Darnold and how they interact with him. It's going to have to start with that pass rush, so you're going to have to get a pass rush on him. I don't think he's that elite of a passer. He's a solid passer. I mean, he was great. He was good at USC, drafted in the first round and to the Jets, and then things didn't really pan out there. He went to the Panthers. Things didn't really pan out there. He was along with Baker Mayfield, and now he's, over in Minnesota. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do, or what we can do against him, and see if we can't stop him and stop that kind of passing game with Justin Jefferson and a number of others. Aaron Jones is making his return to Lambeau. We'll kind of talk about that game. But the Vikings are coming to town at 3-0. Aaron Jones returned to Lambeau at Lambeau Field. We know what Jones is capable of in terms of the passing game and the running game. But it'll be interesting to see how we formulate around that, because we know exactly what he's going to do. He's going to be good outside the numbers. He's great catching the pass. He's a good runner. He's slippery. He finds little holes. But what do the Packers have to do? I'll give you a little bit talking points here. We're going to have to get a pass rush on them first, and especially maintain that run defense. I liked what I know I might be butchering his name, Edgerrin Cooper did in the game. He looks really good at linebacker. I'd like to see him, holding that run game accountable, along with, the defensive front, which I mentioned before. But, Jones, we got to keep him out. We can't let him get outside the numbers. We know he's dangerous outside the numbers. And if he gets up to those sides of the field, he's going to make plays. Jones is one of the better running backs, I would say, even for his age. He's, closing on, I think he's 30-something. And I'll have a little edit there saying exactly what his age is. But he's at 30. And he, the team looks good. I mean, they're coming off a win, 34-7 to the Texans, which was supposed to be a really good team, but now they seem like they're a little bit hyped up. I know in fantasy, CJ Stroud hasn't been playing nearly as well as I would hope him to do. And my fantasy team sucks, so I might just trade away all the players and call it a season because I'm kind of busy right now. But it'll be interesting to see what the Texans kind of make up. But credit to the Vikings. They've beaten now San Francisco and the Texans, probably the two hardest teams on the schedule for us, I would say. And they did it in this last one in dominating fashion. But we need to keep him inside the numbers. We can't let Jefferson get big plays. Jefferson's been having some big plays. He's getting over the top. And I know Mel Kiper hates that too high, but we're going to have to run that too high and keep him in check. Because I don't want to see Jefferson getting over those, defensive or those safeties as well. And then on the other side of the field, a little bit of an interesting fact is we got to keep an eye on Greenard on the defensive side. He's been making an impact. Now, he made a really big impact against the Texans. He had 3 sacks in the game, which, he's dangerous. And he only had, I think, 1 in each of the ones before that. So he had, 2 coming into the game and, 3 in that game. So he's got 5 on the season. But he's proving to be a pretty good pass rush. That defense has always been solid. And I know they're talking about Brian Flores, changing that defense up, making everything happen. I still don't buy it. I still don't buy that their defense is that strong. I guess they have faced good teams, but I think the Packers got a different kind of, can figure them out in a different way and get through that defense. I think if we do start Love, he's going to just pick them apart, just working his way downfield. And I don't think you go for the big shots right away. I think the Packers need to set up, the 10-yard gains, just go for a chunk of yards, 5 yards at a time. First and second down, try to get those 5 yards, wear on that defense a little bit. I don't want to see, I know we did a couple years ago, the big play over to Christian Watson on the play action pass and throw it over the top. I don't know if that's going to work this time because that defense appears to be stronger. but we'll have to see. And then how do we attack them? So we'll go back to that a little bit. I'm going to say we got to attack them through the run game. We're going to have to get Jacobs activated a little bit, and we're going to have to get Wilson. Wilson runs like a dog. I mean, he's hungry for yards, and he's going to be pushing for yards. He's a physical runner, and I really like what he's doing. But Jacobs and Wilson are going to have to kind of work as a 1-2, and then our receiving core, I know we don't have a number one receiver according to Bears fans, but yet we're still killing it in the receiving game. And they're going to have to get really going. I think we work a lot through the tight ends. I think we work through, I don't know if Tucker Kraft's going to be in that game. I heard some news that he might not. But either whoever it is, Musgrave's a pass catcher. He's a dog too. Going to have to go to him. Going to have to get those checkdowns. Going to have to get those easy passes against a solid defense. And the Vikings are always have been known for that with Harrison Smith back there. He's kind of the captain of that team. And it'll be interesting to see how they attack that. On Sunday, I will be at the game, so if you do want to reach out to me at RealJohnnySamp, you can tweet at me. Might play a little Marco Polo with Aaron Nagler. Hopefully he's there. I'm sure he's going to be there, but I'm trying to get his attention. But anyways, so basically what we're going to have to do is going to have to take chunk yards. You're not going to have to try to get the big chunks. I'm just going to say small chunks. You're going to have to wear in that defense and show them that the Packers can wear out teams. We did it against the Colts. We did it against the Titans. And I would say we even did it against the Eagles with Jordan Love. We're just going to have to get those chunk yards, stay on the field for a long time with offense, make that defense stay out there, get them tired. Once that fourth quarter comes around, we'll just take them, and, as Wayne Larrivee will say, there's your dagger. We're going to have to stick the dagger in them, and we're going to have to keep on the gas against this Viking team, because I'm not convinced that they're really that good, but, I mean, they're proven to be good, and they're proven to do really good things. So it's going to be something the Packers are going to have to watch out for. I mean, they beat San Francisco. They beat the Texans. They look really good. And those were two playoff teams last year that ran deep into the playoffs. And now, here they are 2-0 against them. And they're 3-0 on the season. So we're going to have to see what we can do. And we're going to have to make it happen through running an offense that's, I would say, more or less segmented. I don't want to see us get, on the field. I mean, it's nice to get those big scores, those one pass, one touchdown, but you got to wear down that defense a little bit. You got to keep that defense on the field. We can't have our defense on the field for a long time. And I like what we're doing with turnovers. I believe we're at 5 or 6 on the season, through interceptions and that sort of thing. I think we need more sacks. We didn't really get to the quarterback last week. It was a slow week for that defensive line, but we're going to have to get back to him. I think Sam Darnold, if you get a pass rush on him, he's going to panic. I don't think he's a real, experienced quarterback where he's going to sit in the pocket, kind of move up, move around. He's going to try to scatter, and that's where, he's probably not doing his best running out. I haven't seen a ton of footage on him running and throwing, but if he's scrambling and he's outside the pocket and he's got to scramble out, move away from the contact, he's going to have troubles all the time, I got a feeling. I don't think he's got the footwork to throw off those good passes. I think he's a good quarterback inside the pocket, but outside the pocket, I don't think he's going to be able to do much. And we're going to have to just make sure that we do keep him in check. But I think the Packers got a really great opportunity to spoil kind of a season opener of a 3-0 start here at Lambeau, and I can't wait for the game. So I'm going to give you a score prediction here. I'm going to go Packers 28 and Vikings 17. So I'm going to say the Packers do get that offense going. I think it's going to happen, and I want to see Josh Jacobs get a touchdown so badly. Whether it's a throwing or rushing, right now I don't care. Just get him a touchdown. Now I don't want that to be the focus of the game. I don't want it to be like, oh, we got to get him this. But I would definitely like to see him, score one time at least here in Lambeau. Get a little love from Lambeau. Get that leap in, and have some fun with it. Now, Aaron Jones did mention before that he is planning on doing a Lambeau leap if he does score. Now, does that hurt? Yes, it does. But as I always said, the Vikings are the graveyard for the former Packers. I don't really believe, I know Jones praised his team, but what else are you going to do? He's on a new team. He's not with the green and gold. I know today he released a letter saying, he may not have the G on his helmet, but he's always got it in his heart. And I do have a lot of respect for Aaron Jones. I just didn't like the fact that he left us. Now I know the contract negotiations, there's a lot more issues but after that, and we kind of did come out pretty well with Josh Jacobs on that move, but I don't want to see him do a Lambeau leap in a purple jersey, and I know he's going to do it. He's going to find a pocket of Vikings fan because I'm sure they already bought their tickets well ahead of the season starting, and they got their front row seats. But it's going to be tough. But if he does, I want the Lambeau PA. I mean, Bill Jarts, give him all the credit, but I also want the music directors to play a little "We Made You" by Eminem. I think that would be fun. I think, it just add to the rivalry a little bit. I think if we play the "We Made You" by Eminem, that would just hint a little bit that, hey, let's keep it down. This is, your old house. You're no longer here. You're no longer with us. We still love you, but, green and gold's where you started. And we'll have to keep that. So I got, 28-17 as a score prediction. I want to hear your score predictions. Be sure to tweet at me and comment on this post or comment on this video. That would be awesome to interact with you guys a little bit. But let's move on to some other news in the NFC North. And Chicago, they're a mess. They continue to be a mess. I said this before the season started. I know I got a lot of flack for it because, they don't have the pieces to... I mean, they have the pieces. They have the pieces to be a really good team, and I'm not denying that. But they don't have the essential piece of the offensive line. That offensive line continues to be an issue. Caleb Williams getting no time. The Bears moved to 1-2. The offensive line, I mean, there's that picture of the offensive line all laying on the ground. I believe that was a 4th down play, 4th and a yard or something, or 4th and goal, and they had to get to the, obviously the touchdown. And there's 4 or 5 of them laying on the ground while the Colts go running after Swift. And there's just nothing he can do. But, I don't know. I know there's a lot of Bear fans saying they're ready for the Super Bowl, and I remember Nick Wright saying this is the most Super Bowl ready team for a rookie quarterback. And Jayden Daniels looks better than Caleb Williams. I will say that. And Jayden Daniels supposedly has a lot worse pieces, but he's making things happen with McLaurin and all of them. Zach Ertz as well, and he got a big win over the weekend. But, yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams, I don't really put a ton of blame on him yet. I do like to make a joke of it just to make sure that, Bears fans stay in check. They were praising this guy as, the next coming, and they said Ryan Poles is a genius. And I made the meme of excuse me, what is it called now? Flex Seal guy. And I said it was that hole in the tank, and there was water's pouring out, and then he slaps a thing as Flex Seal on it. And I said that, the Bears offensive line is the tank, and it's got the hole in it. And then they say draft Caleb Williams and ruin his career because they didn't fix the offensive line. I know people were saying, oh, they signed this guy, they signed this guy. Well, they haven't proven that they're very good. And Caleb Williams, I've heard gets the ball at the 6th fastest in the league or something up there. And that's what's happening with your quarterback, especially a rookie with his receiving core. And now I won't say his receiving core is, I know it's got big names, but I don't know if they're the best receiving core. I think Packers receiving core is a lot better than that one. Keenan Allen spends more time on the bench than you can expect. And then Rome Odunze, he's getting hurt. And DJ Moore looks frustrated. It's just looks like a mess there in Chicago. And once again, the Bears, just kind of swinging and missing again. Because they don't have the right pieces in place. They always want to rush to get to the Super Bowl, and they never have any sort of setup to it. They just kind of throw things together and hope for the best, and that's fine. I mean, that's what's kept them at the bottom of the NFC North for all these years. And they had that one championship in '85, but Ditka set up that team. It was a very set up and orientated team. There was no questions about who was going to play where, what was going to happen, and what the offense was going to look like, or defense especially. It was a very, very scheduled team. I really don't know what the Bears fans expect. I know they say Ryan Poles is a genius. I don't see it. I think he could have gotten an offensive line in the first round. Maybe went with Marvin Harrison Jr., and I know that was a discussion on Twitter once again. The Marvin Harrison Jr. versus Caleb Williams, and then going with an offensive line because they did have those 2 first-round picks. And that would have probably been beneficial because Justin Fields shown he's pretty good at quarterback, and he's got a couple wins and leading his Steelers team to 3-0 in the early going on the season. But the Bears have the Rams coming up this week, and the Rams are actually looking good. I will say that. I think they're looking pretty solid. I know they lost to the Lions early in the season, and Stafford is one guy that's pretty familiar with how the Bears run. I would say, the Rams are coming off a win versus the Niners. Once again, Niners just struggling, and they can't seem to find a way. 27-24. So I would say it wasn't really a dominance game, but Stafford's definitely finding a way to win. They lost, I think, in overtime by 6 to the Lions in that week 1. But do the Bears have a chance in this one? I think they do. I think they do. I don't think the Rams are that strong of a playoff contender. I know I'm speaking a little biasly, but I don't think they are that strong of a week or playoff contender. I think they're a solid team. I think they're going to be a really good team, and they might make improvements. But right now they're missing their top 2 receivers, but they're still making things happen. So if I had to predict this game, I would go Rams probably 21, Bears 17. I think the Bears do add a loss there, even though they are at home. But they're going to need a big game out of Williams, and he's going to have to look really good. I haven't seen it quite yet. I know he's gotten a lot of yards, but he had last week 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, so that kind of evens the mediocrity out. And I know Bears fans are saying he's getting better every week. He is. I won't deny that. But from what you guys were saying all offseason, he should have been ready to go, firing on all missiles in week 1, and he hasn't been. That week 1 win was all defense. Week 2, he lost. And then week 3, now another loss. And, week 2 is brutal against the Texans. That was a brutal loss. It was just a massacre. And then even though the score doesn't show it, he got sacked like 7 times. And it was just outrageous. But then week 3, you have a not very good team. Or, a Colts team that was, we beat the week before with a backup quarterback and whole new play system that we learned in 1 week. And you guys can't figure it out. You guys have most of your starters in, or a couple of your starters in. Keenan Allen's out. I think Odunze was out too. But yeah, you guys, Bears just aren't making it happen. And there was a lot of hype in the offseason with Caleb Williams, and I'm just not seeing it quite yet. I think Jaden Daniels was probably the best pick at quarterback right now, as things stand. Now, that can all change by the end of the season, learning curves, that sort of thing. And we'll have to see what happens with that. But I think for the quarterbacks right now, I would say Jaden Daniels is the number one, should have been the number 1 pick. And maybe the Bears struck out, maybe they didn't. We'll have to see. Sometimes it takes a learning curve. With Jordan Love, it also did. So I'm not going to count Caleb Williams out. I know he's talented, but he also did play in the Pac-12, which wasn't really that strong of a conference. At USC, they didn't have the greatest year. And, they weren't necessarily in like bowl, championship contention or anything like that. But let's talk back again on this Stafford with the defense here. Well, we kind of talked about it, but Stafford's going to have a good game. He knows this defense is strong for the Bears, led by Jalen Johnson, and it's going to be a tough matchup. But I think he's got the potential to do it. So I think the Bears take this one, the Rams take this one. It's not going to be easy fashion, but it's going to be a fashion that, they get the win. They get out of Chicago. It might not be the prettiest game, but they're going to I think the Rams get the win here, and it's going to be a, kind of a grudge match. But I think the Rams are a solid team, even though they are missing some of their starters, and they do still have Matt Stafford at quarterback, which always makes him a weapon and makes himself a weapon as well. Now let's move on to his former team, the Lions. The Lions, they beat the Cardinals in a lackluster win, 20-13. I think the Cardinals should have taken that game, moving them to 2-1 on the season. But there was a lot of questions in that game. Goff was 18 for 23, 199 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Murray, on the other hand, was 21 for 34, and he had 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But the Lions are supposed to be this really good team, and they really haven't shown it. The Cardinals, what would they draft? 6th or 8th in the year? They're at the lowest of the league. Yes, they got new, coaching, that sort of thing. But are the Cardinals better than what we expect them to be, or are the Lions just not as scary as they should be? And I'm going to say so far the Lions are not as scary as they should be, or as they claim to be, because now I see Lions fans reaching out, trying to get Max Crosby, trying to get, before it was Hassan Riddick, and they keep tweeting out and trying to convince the front office that, they need this extra weapon. But I thought you guys were set. I thought this was a team that was ready to go, ready to fire on all missiles, going to make the Super Bowl, and going to finally claim, the first prize for the Lions in their whole franchise. But my personal thing is I think Dan Campbell's been figured out. I think that last year he was kind of new. I mean, yes, he had a couple years before him, but he didn't really have that offense that he really wanted. And then finally last year he got that offense he really wanted. They had the most explosive offense according to, every NFL analyst. And the Lions, I think they got figured out and their offense is less explosive. And Goff, I think he's a mid quarterback. I don't see a lot from the guy. I don't think there's anything to be scared of him. I don't think he's going to come in clutch when he has to. I just don't really, I think he's a good role quarterback. I think he's kind of like a Kirk Cousins. Kirk did have a nice game, and I'm not going to deny that. But in big moments, when it comes push to shove, do I want to gamble my money on Goff? No. No, absolutely not. I don't think he's anything special. I think he's going to have to rely on the talent around him with Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, just to list a couple, Jameson Williams. But they have the Seahawks coming up this week, who are also a 3-0, and that's going to be a tough one. I really don't see the Lions coming out with that one. I mean, they barely beat the Rams week 1, and now they just sneak out of a win against the Cardinals in week 3. They haven't really had a dominant and formidable win. And then they lost to the Bucs week 2 against Baker. So they haven't really had a formidable win. They haven't really, pushed the gas to the pedal. They kind of snuck out of games. And I think the big scary Lions in the offseason were just a whole lot of talk. And I don't think they're that scary. I said it all offseason. I don't think that team's going to be that scary. And I know everybody's like, give me crap because they said, Lions are, they just won the division. They went to the NFC Championship game. But then you blew a 17-point lead. I mean, you had the game. But then you guys got all cocky at halftime, and then it went out, and Dan Campbell said that might have been their only chance, and I sure think that might have been their only chance. I don't think the Lions are nearly as scary as they were last year. When we saw them coming out and playing in the early going of last season, they came out and kicked teeth in. I'm not going to deny that. They came to Lambeau and beat us like 40-7 or something ridiculous. And that was kind of in the phase when Jordan Love was still learning the offense. Jordan Love was still trying to get acclimated to what his team was capable of doing. And then we beat him on Thanksgiving. So I really don't think the Lions are that scary of a team anymore. But they do have the Seahawks once again coming in to open things up. And if I had to make a score prediction on this one, I'm going to take Seahawks. I'm going to take the Birds. I think Seahawks are doing really good. Mike McDonald's really got that team coached well. And he's got them fitted for Geno's offense. And what I mean by that is they're not running the same, I would say, like they're bending molding everything to what Geno's good at. They're not getting anything that he's not good at. They're playing really good defense or playing really good offense. I mean, DK Metcalf's getting involved and he's huge, both figuratively and literally. And I think Geno's going to have a big game in Motown. But I don't see the Lions beating them. I think it's going to be a close one, and I think it's going to be a good defensive matchup. I think it's going to be like 17-14 in favor of the Seahawks, and I just don't think the Lions are that good. I mean, I know I say it a lot, and I just try to get in the heads of Lions fans just because they were, if not the most annoying, close to second in the NFC North in the offseason. After draft day, it was definitely the Bears fans, and I'll have to, always got to take a snipe at them. But, I don't think Lions are as good as they claim to be. I think Dan Campbell's been figured out a little bit. And I think they got really kind of crappy fans. I mean, the address thing that happened with Dan Campbell this week, it was kind of crap. Like, if you're releasing an address and threatening the coach because you lost the game to the Buccaneers and you just snuck out of a Cardinals win, but you've always been a mediocre or, kind of the bottom tier of a franchise, and this guy's kind of lifted you up into the, I'll say, mid-high tier of a franchise right now. I mean, that's really unacceptable, Lions fans. I mean, I get it. You're excited that your team's finally winning, but if you're gonna go after the head coach and do that sort of stuff, I know Detroit's passionate about its sports, just like kind of like Philly, kind of like a lot of places, but that's kind of over the line with that one. But I said, Seahawks going to win that one, 17-14. Geno's going to have a big game. I expect a lot from DK. He's going to obviously get the brunt of the defense. And, Mike Macdonald's going to carry that team to 4-0. But let's move on to some other news in the NFL. Now, this one's, kind of a big topic. But Chiefs fans, the Chiefs continue. Something that I've noticed is the Chiefs continue to win based on ref calls, and it's been in the last 3 games. That first game was going to be a toe touch, it just nearly touched out of bounds, and then that last one was, against the Bengals, was a pass interference that really wasn't a pass interference, and then this one was a pass interference in the end zone to Kyle Pitts. But the guy was wrapped around him. So are the Chiefs getting the calls that they need? Or are we just, I know there's a lot of questions on, is the NFL rigged? And I honestly can't say it's not. If I'm being honest, I've just seen too much evidence that, the Chiefs seem to be getting the calls that they need and calls that they want at the right time. But it's also the fact that I'm noticing the Chiefs aren't as good as they should be. I mean, the Chiefs are not playing as good a ball as they should be. They're just sneaking out of wins. I mean, Cincinnati's 0-3, and they won that one because of a bad call. And then Atlanta with Kirk Cousins, yes, they look better. I'm not going to deny that. I believe they're 2-1 now on the season. But I think they should have just rolled right over Atlanta and not even given them any breath. But Atlanta was right in that game that whole time. And it came down to a pass interference call, or lack of a pass interference call in the end zone on Kyle Pitts, because he clearly was getting hit in his, the defender's helmet was right in his stomach, and the ball wasn't even there yet, but there was no call there. So I think the Chiefs got some problems there, and I don't think they're as dominant as they should be for a team that's won the Super Bowl back-to-back and now looking for, a three-peat. So I think this is an opening time for a lot of teams. I mean, I think the NFC looks stronger. I'll admit that. I think the NFC looks stronger, and I know there's going to be a lot of flack for that. I don't think the Ravens look as good. They should be really good, but they're not. They continue to have struggles. John Harbaugh is just not figuring things out over there. And then, the Steelers are leading that division. And then Miami's, they've had their injuries, so they're moving down. And then Houston, not looking as good as they should be. CJ Stroud, I don't know if it's a sophomore slump or what's going on, but he's having a little bit of a tough run after, a great season last season. And then, and then in the West there, it's going to be the Chiefs. They look solid, but the South's got nobody either, I would say, besides the Texans. And then the West, we'll talk about. The Chiefs are supposed to be the number 1, but they're sneaking out of wins. It seems like they're getting refs calls, which, have at it. If you think the league's rigged in any sort of way, let me know. Be sure to tweet at me, at RealJohnnySamp. And, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of questions, especially after, 3 wins based on reffing calls for the Chiefs, and really it's one-score games. Chiefs aren't really putting the hammer down. I know Mahomes gets a lot of hype, and I can't stand listening to Romo or Collinsworth or anybody talking about him. It's the most annoying thing to me, and I really think, I don't think Chiefs are as good as they claim to be. Now we'll close it out here. Jerry Jones is having once again trouble in the Jerryland after his team moves to 1-2 start. And players look frustrated, to say the least. We saw Dak Prescott, talking to a fan, telling him to get off the wagon. You've seen arguments on the sideline. But is this Jerry Jones' fault? The Cowboys start 1-2? I think we got to blame Jerry Jones. He kind of set things up in the offseason to be, not so I would say, like, smooth. He didn't give Dak his contract, or CD, excuse me, until like a couple weeks before the season started. And then, Mike Parsons was obviously upset too because he knows his contract is coming up. And Jerry's not paying. He hasn't seen anything to pay. And I think that's going to be something that comes back to bite him. Especially come playoff time. Especially come moving down the season. They are 1-2 right now. Mike McCarthy, I would say, is in the hot seat once again. But I think this one goes on Jerry. I think a lot of the blame's got to go on Jerry. I mean, he's caused a lot of frustrations in the offseason. And he continues to... I mean, there was that video with Jamie Foxx, just do dumb things, and I would say. I'm not going to go into it. You can look it up if you'd want to with Jamie Foxx, Instagram Live or something. And it's just weird. But Jerry's, he's kind of causing a lot of turbulence in the Cowboy land. And I got to think Cowboys fans are getting fed up with it because every year they're looking for something new. I mean, they went after a new coach with Mike McCarthy. They were, I think they were second in the playoffs last year seeding. And then the Packers came in and, beat the brakes off them. And then we put in our backups. And Jerry's obviously pissed. He thinks it's the coach's fault. But the coaches thinks it's Jerry's fault. So whose fault is it? I'm going to blame it on Jerry. He's been the focal point of that team. He's always made it about himself. And now he's starting to see the backlash of it. But I think Jerry Jones, he's causing a lot of turbulence. He's causing a lot of issues within the Cowboys organization. I know he's the head of the organization, so obviously it's a little bit more difficult. He's the owner. And yeah, I think there's trouble in Cowboy land. And I don't think things get easier as the season goes on. I think it's just going to keep feeding up. I know fans are getting fed up with it, but they're taking it out on the players, which I really don't think that should be. But they can't reach Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones doesn't want to be reached. He's not going to be open to public comment. It's his team. He doesn't care. So what do you think? Do you think it's Jerry Jones' fault? Do you think it's Mike McCarthy's fault? Or do you think it's somebody else within the organization there? Make sure to comment or, tweet at me once again at RealJohnnySamp. I'd love to hear your thoughts and love to hear what you have to say on this question here. Whose fault is it in Dallas? Who's responsible for all the struggles, all the continued frustration within the organization? And I mean, with this 1-2 start, it's not the worst thing. But I think Cowboys fans were expecting a lot better, especially with all the money that's been spent out and all the work on the team. With all these star talented players, they should be better, and they're just simply not getting any better. So make sure to tweet at me in any sort of way. Make sure to comment. You can also email me at wespnsports@gmail.com. We got lots of connections, and just make sure share your thoughts, share your opinions. Let's hear it. I love to hear what people have to say, and love to hear what you guys are thinking. Make sure you keep up with everything and keep up with sports, and especially in the NFC North. So I will be at that game this weekend. Lots of tweets are going to be sent out and lots of trash talk towards Aaron Jones. I hope they play We Made You by Eminem as he walks onto the field just for fun. I still have a lot of love for Aaron Jones. Like he said, he has a G in his heart, but not on his head. And, I thank him for a lot of great memories. I thank him for a lot of things. As a Packer, but now he's on the enemy's side, so I can't really credit to him, or can't really be too kind to him. I gotta make a stand, and gotta have my own opinion on him. So I'm making him the enemy. I know that's probably wrong in some people's minds, but I'm gonna make him the enemy this week. It's nothing personal. It's all just out of fun and out of sportsmanship. And I hope the Pack get a win. Let's go Pack. So that'll wrap things up for the Beer, Meat, and Cheese podcast, the second one of our, continued episodes and podcasts. Make sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to follow us on Spotify. We are posting on Spotify as well. You can listen to us in the car and listen to us right before the game. We'll have some special guests on here soon. I know I promised for next week there was going to be a special guest, but we had some scheduling issues and that sort of thing. But we'll hopefully get somebody on here and have a little bit more of a conversation. But if you want to start the conversation, once again, make sure to tweet at me at RealJohnnySamp or send me an email or any sort of way to contact me. I'm always open to comments and always open to good football discussion. But let's get after it. Let's have a good week, and I'll see you next week.